Part 2 of session 102. Let's continue talking on personal material and particularly what I call the great healing. Let's begin. In the last episode, in the first part of this session, we discussed a lot about the dietary influence and the condition that Carla had at the moment with her intestines and her liver, kidneys, I think kidneys as well. Basically her physical condition as she had some issues, and we discussed all of that. So now we're just going to end the rest of the conversation, and I'm going to reiterate one question that I cover in the last episode, which is the last one in the last episode, and I thought it was so beautifully disguised here in this personal material, and that's why I obviously want to cover every single Q&A that is here, because in each one of these Q&As there is a lot of information. So this question was question 11, and I'll read it again just so we just see the simplicity of it, and yet of course the amount of devotion and dedication that this invites us to have. So that's the only refresher that I'm going to make. And also mention, I just returned from Kentucky. For those of you who may listen to me and attended, you know that this is the time in recording that I came back from Kentucky. Jim's house, we got together for homecoming in his house in Kentucky, Louisville, and it was a wonderful experience. The reason why I'm mentioning that is because Gary, the director of LNL Research, gifted me this. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. This little thing is magical because I no longer have to use my mouse to click on the slides, so I can just use this magic thing, and it's wireless. See, I'm updating myself with the world. Thanks to Gary Bean and his gift to me. So, let's begin with the last question of the last episode and the refresher here. And I do need to use my fading screen here and mouse and all that stuff, but for slides I can use this. Okay, so this question, like I said, I covered last time, and Don is asking that it's the yellow ray blockage problem that has been repaired due to the healing, and the question comes from the whole conversation that we had before. But Ross says here that to unblock the yellow ray, they say each entity must, in order to unblock yellow ray, love all which are in relationship to it, with hope only of the other selves' joy, peace, and comfort. So I thought it was beautiful, and for anybody who wants to know how to unblock yellow ray, well, that's the type of relationship that you need to have for everybody that is in relationship with you. So you don't have to go out in the world. I mean, you can if you want, but the essential unblocking is that you can love anybody. You see, if you have a problem with the word love, use the word acceptance, which is a bit more, it's a bit closer to what we find when we engage in this recognition of everything being awareness, as we do in the direct path. Acceptance is the inevitable consequence of this. It is impossible not to accept when you are in this recognition of being. And so acceptance is it'll transform into love, I promise you. It's just that we don't have good experience with this type of love, which is not discriminatory love. So yeah, it's necessary for you to accept every relationship, every other person, right? And the result or the hope is to desire for the other people joy, peace, and comfort. So these things being, of course, just the natural hope that we all have for anybody who is in distress. And the way this shows to me in practice is that when you recognize that everybody is the creator, everybody is awareness itself, and there is, a personality in front of them that they're trying to defend and they're trying to maintain, and of course causes some disturbance in them, then all you can hope for them is to find that peace, within, and that joy that comes out of that peace. So yeah, that's a way for you to engage in this acceptance. And of course, acceptance starts with self-acceptance, so it begins with you. So again, I thought it was important to refresh that and mention it again. But now let's move to the first question that I have in this new episode. So, is this working? No, it's not working. I have to do this. Okay, so question 12, Don says, the second thing that the instrument must do to effect this cure is to be careful of diet, which includes all that Ra has just stated and what Bob recommends from his readings. There seem to be so many different things that could cause this spasm. I was just wondering if there is a general approach to foods. Could Ra recommend, say, those foods the instrument could eat that would have no chance of creating the problem that caused the spasm? Could Ra do that, please? And of course, Ra is going to say no. Don says, is this because of the first distortion? Ra says, no. Don says, why cannot Ra do that? Ra says, there are no foods which this instrument can take with total confidence that no spasm shall occur. The spasming portions of the vehicle have become sensitized through great distortions toward that which you call pain. So, yeah, there is, I guess, the complexity of somebody who is sick is such that once you introduce something to the system, to the digestive system, then you're going to have to deal with some sort of reaction of the body. And so that's why Ra was not able to give a true answer to what Don was asking, which was, with total confidence, what food can she eat that is not going to cause the spasms? And Ra said that, yeah, there is no way they could prevent that from happening from eating food. And again, when your digestive system is so impacted and so disturbed, then of course, I would assume, that putting it to work, it's going to make it work with some degree of discomfort. So I guess that's the condition. And they do go on to say a couple of things, in regards to what kind of foods would be more appropriate, I guess. And yeah, we're gonna get to that. I don't have much to add here, just to highlight, of course, the condition that Carla was in at this moment and still be able to channel Ra. So, this is not an easy thing to do, and not something that I don't think anybody else would have done. That's why Ra said, we scanned so many people to try to talk through and we couldn't find until we find you, the three of you. So yeah. Okay, so let's go to the next question, which is related to this. Don says, is there a group of foods which is most likely not to cause the spasming condition, or any foods that Ra could mention that are highly probable not to cause spasm? Typical Ra, they say yes. Don says, would Ra please mention which foods are highly probable in not causing any spasming in the instrument's digestive system? Here's the answer. Ra says, the liquids not containing carbonation, the well-cooked vegetable, which is most light and soft, the well-cooked grains, the non-fatted meat, such as the fish. You may note that some recommended foodstuffs overlap allergies and sensitivities due to the juvenile rheumatoid arthritic conditions or distortions. Further, although sugar, such as in your sweetened desserts, represents a potential, we may suggest that it be included at this period for the aforementioned reasons. So, yeah, quite a list of things to do. Carla did mention that she had to cook very well the vegetables and the fruits even. And Ra says, which is most light and soft. This is because it would help with the digestion of the food itself, as opposed to being raw. Being raw would cause more distress or more work in the digestive system. So they had to cook everything really well, even the grains. And this makes sense. So it's almost like baby food, which is overly cooked. It's not all baby food, but I remember that being a thing, at least with my son. My mother stressed the need to cook very well things so that he didn't have some discomfort. And that makes sense. And then they recommended the fish, non-fatted meats, such as fish. Now, not all fish, of course, is it's fat-free. We all know that salmon, for example, has a lot of fat. So, just needed to mention that. Then, of course, there are some foods which have allergies and sensitivities, or to which Carla had allergies and sensitivities because of the rheumatoid arthritic distortions. Not sure how that's related, but that was a thing. And then they go back again to say the sugar, something that we wouldn't recommend for healthy diets, I guess. But again, I guess one of the added benefits that has sugar is not only that Carla was already easily metabolizing carbohydrates, particularly sugars, which are simple carbohydrates. But yeah, that being the condition, anything that was easily digested was welcome. So, even though they say that even though sugar represents a potential for spasm, the benefit outweighs the downside of it, which is these spasms. And I think that's what it is. Carla weighing, I think Jim mentioned that Carla was 83 pounds. The lowest weight that she was 83 pounds, and Carla was, I think, wearing like it was preteen clothing, something like that, like girls' outfits. That was the size that she was at that time. So yeah, imagine at this point you have to consume anything that is easily digestible. So the sugars were to remain in her diet, even though they had a potential for causing spasms And of course, the other things that sugar has. But what do they give you in the hospital when when you can't eat? They inject basically simple carbohydrates into you. So that's the thing. It was needed in her condition, so she had to take it. Okay, moving on. This is question 17. Don says, would Rob please estimate the length of time in our time periods for the probability of this problem if we follow these curative measures for the probability of this problem to continue in any extreme severity? Ross says, one of your moon's revolutions has a good probability vortex of seeing either the worsening of the spastic condition so that surgery becomes indicated, or the bettering of the situation so that the diet continues to be watched, but the spasms be removed. The housing of the working is within the infection, within the duodenum, the stomach, the jejunum, the ileum, the transverse colon, and portions of the liver. This shall be somewhat difficult to remove and constitutes perhaps the most efficient working to date. We may suggest again that the one known as Bob may be of aid. The one known as Stuart could, if it wished, discover the infection which is only marginally detectable, but may prefer not to do so. In this case, it would be well to request physical aid from an allopathic specialist such as that which has been mentioned. So, just recommendations in general and the description of the problem, as well as the what's the prognosis of, is it prognosis? Yes, of how long she was going to deal with this. So again, about a month, they say, for carrying her through the worst part of it. And of course, if she continues to watch the diet, then they explain again. This is something that we explored, that Ra mentioned prior in other questions. All these parts of the digestive system, the duodenum, the stomach, the jejunum, the ileum, all parts of the intestines, and the transverse colon right at the end. And yes, this that's that. And then I remember, I think it was Don who wasn't in agreement with the doctors, especially because somebody, I think it was this Arthur that we're going to talk about in the next question, Arthur Schoen, who said that he kind of felt uneasy to follow the indications of Ra, a discarnate entity speaking through the patient itself. So I guess he was not very cooperative with the suggestions by Ra, and maybe he wanted to suggest something else, but I think they didn't follow through with him. Maybe they went with Stuart, which is the one that they were mentioning here, but I'm not sure who Stuart is, because Ra says to look for an allopathic specialist such as Arthur Schoen, which again Don is going to ask, and I think the answer is yes. So yeah, just follow with the specialist. Let's see if it was Arthur that they mentioned. Question 18, Don says, do you mean by that Arthur Schoen, that'd be the allopathic or modern medicine doctor? And Ross says, that is correct. Don asks, you mentioned the possibility of surgery. What would be the surgery to be done specifically? And Ross says, the body cannot long bear the extreme acidity which is the environment of such spasms, and will develop the holes or ulcerations which then do appear upon the allopathic testings, and suggest to the chirurgeon that which is to be excised. So I guess that's the extraction. And Don is going to ask about this. I'm just going to mention here that the acidic environment is something that lately has been a thing in nutrition, talking about an alkaline body, and there are many diets for that. So yeah, I think most of our diets or the food stuff that we consume are putting the body into acidity or an acidic environment, and that is the environment in which disease kind of grows. So you want to have some balance. The funny thing is that sugar, of course, contributes to the acidic environment in the body enormously. So by consuming sugar, she was putting herself in that place. But which is worse, trying to balance with some sugar and stay alive, or barely gain any weight? I don't know. It was a tough situation for Carla. And so, yeah, I think that's what I wanted to mention. So, spasms, and will develop the holes or ulcerations, which then will appear on the testings that they will do on her. And the chirurgeon is surgeon, by the way. It's an archaic word for surgeon. Well, the surgeon may want to extract them, because that's what they do. There's no healing, but rather just chopping, and chopping. So let's follow up with the next question. Gotta get used to this remote thing. Don says in question 20, in other words, the removal of ulcers. Would this be a duodenic ulcer? Would this be the type of operation that you would perform for a duodenic ulcer? And Ross says, if the ulceration occurs, it shall be past the jejunum and most likely include the ileum and upper portions of the transverse colon. May we ask for one more query of normal length, as this entity, though filled with enough transfer energy, has the most fragile framework through which we may channel this and our energies. So yeah, once again, there's just the ulceration, but it's going to be lower down the portions of the intestines, so getting up or down to the colon itself. And yeah, we have to finish the session, so last questions. I don't have much to say here, but just move along. This is going to be a short episode. Don says, question 21, obviously we would very much like to not get to the point of surgery, and the only other alternative that comes to mind, other than the diet and the instrument's personal mental work, is healing through a healer. He continues and says, and I would like Ra's recommendation with respect to a non-allopathic type healer, and any recommendations Ra could make for either Jim or myself to act in that capacity, or anyone else Ra could recommend, so that we wouldn't have to go through this surgical operation if it seems to become necessary. And if we could start working on one of these other approaches right away, I think it might be highly recommended. Would Ra comment on that, please? And so Don wants an alternative, basically. Anything that Jim and Don can do. Ra says, we salute the opening of compassion circuitry in the questionnaire, but note that that which is being experienced by this group is being experienced within an healing atmosphere. The healing hands of each have limited use when the distortion has so many metaphysical layers and mixtures. Therefore, look not to a healing, but to the joy of companionship, for each is strong and has its feet set upon the way. The moon casts its shadows. What shall you see? Link hands and walk towards the sun. In this instance, this is the greatest healing. For the physical vehicle, we can suggest far less than you had hoped. So this is a great answer because Ra is, in essence, saying there's nothing else you can do. You have done everything that is possible, and we admire your open hearts, which they said, in of course their own language, the opening of compassion circuitry in the questionnaire. So we admire, we salute your opening of the heart by trying to do this, by suggesting and asking this possibility of not going through surgery, because anybody would like to avoid surgery. Going to the hospital has never been a positive experience. If you can avoid it, you can avoid it, and you will avoid it. And yeah, so notice how Ra in essence says anything, any suggestion of what you can do physically to the body, can do. It's there's nothing else you can do. So they begin by saying that the healing hands of each have limited use. So whatever you can do with your hands is already, you are doing it. And they actually preface this by saying that what they're experiencing is already within a healing atmosphere. Why? Because there is support, because there is joy, because there is there is this harmony that they represented. And so at the end they say, look not to the healing, but to the joy of companionship, for each is strong and has its feet set upon the way. This is beautiful because they denote that they're already in the good path. They are doing this right in that direction. Now, I'm going to talk more about this and the greatest healing that they mention here. The moon casts its shadows, to me, represents that this veiled illusion. We see this and we say, oh my God, I fear what may happen. See, that's the shadow that the moon casts. It's a sort of deception that is being cast on our reality. Well, what shall you see? Grab your hands and walk together towards the sun. In this instance, this is the greatest healing. And again, I'll talk about this, but just to finish up, they say that the physical vehicle, for the physical vehicle, there's not much that they can suggest, and much less than what you had hoped that we could, basically. So, okay, what does this mean? The greatest healing. And again, I'm only going to share my view and how I see this. Initially, I have to say that from my experience, when I heard about healing in this context, all I knew about healing was, you go through treatment once your body is damaged, and that treatment is supposed to, to fix you. Then later on, I realized that treatment is not only available allopathically, which means modern medicine and these chemicals and of course rehab and everything that we know there, but there's also alternatives like plant medicine, which is not psychedelic or doesn't necessarily have to be. I know it's sort of like a synonym already, but plant medicine can be anything, anything that you take that helps, in healing the body. From the Amazon, our shamans, to the Far East, in China, in Japan, where we have these plants that they could help in healing our conditions. So okay, that's an external way to heal the body. Then I learned, so you can heal your body also by your mind. You can use your mind for healing the body. And somehow, of course, this happens because the body is the creature of the mind, and the mind, of course, is what precedes the body. So anything that the mind is fabricating, the body will, of course, receive the impact. So maybe by healing your mind, you can heal your body. But this greatest healing goes beyond mind and body. So here's my take on it, and something that you begin to experience ever so softly as you get into this path. And the invitation is to totally get so involved with this path that this greatest healing is, in essence, present all the time. Let me attempt to explain this. As you correct your view fundamentally of what reality, and by the same token you are, meaning you correct your view of feeling yourself a separate being and acting as one, as such, I should say, not acting as one. This is not the right context for that. Acting as such, as a separate being. When you correct this, as you begin to correct this and look at yourself as the awareness, the pure awareness of the moment, the body starts to lose its importance. Now, some people may misunderstand this by saying, and in fact, I will never forget, it was very impactful for me, this lady who just vomited onto me so many fears that she had. And she said that if you get into non-duality, you're going to neglect your body and all of that. Unfortunate as it may be that interpretation, it's wrong. It's not like you neglect your body because of this finding, but rather the body stops being a source of stress for you. You see, it doesn't have the same pull as it used to have to create psychological suffering. That's a huge difference. And in turn, you are invited to love your body even more. You see? Again, this is something difficult to try to convey to the person who is viewing reality from the separate being, because that separate feeling all it wants is to preserve the body, because it feels that it is in the body. You see, the separate self lives in the body, whereas the body lives in the true self. And so the body can dissolve, and this security, this knowledge that you don't depend on the body is clear, is there. So this is the greatest healing, because it eliminates, yes, pain may be there, but you won't feel it as you would feel it when you're in this sense of separation. Many examples exist in history of mystics who, have experienced all kinds of physical ailments, and they exhibited very little reaction, although pain was pretty much, there. It's not like pain wasn't there, but for example, I remember Ramana Maharshi, when they had to operate something in his arm, and the doctor said that some people said that he didn't want any anesthesia, which is not true. That's, we like to always highlight, or not highlight, adorn a little bit more the story. And so a lot of people said, oh, Ramana Maharshi didn't even get anesthesia for his operation. This is not true. However, what he did decline was general anesthesia. He said he didn't want to. He wanted to be awake for it. And so he accepted some local anesthesia in his arm. And The doctor said that even with that local anesthesia, he was going to feel pain. And he did. However, his face throughout the whole operation was very placid. And the doctor says that he was looking through the window outside in the same expression of just calm serenity while feeling the pain, even though he was slightly numbed. So yeah, this is something that it's, again, there's so many examples out there, but I can attest to this, in saying how you can definitely start to see your body so different. And okay, if there's a disease or if there's something, then it's there, and I can't really explain it, but just your shift or your focus shifts to to awareness, to being, and being is not dependent on the body. It isn't. The more you get in touch with this and you realize that no, being has no dependency on the body, that is the greatest healing. And this is why Ra recommends, link hands and walk towards the sun. In this instance, this is the greatest healing. What else can you do? You have nothing else in your hands to do, and what does link hands mean? Just walk in harmony, walk in peace, connect with this. And yes, that's why we think that healing is the fixing of ourselves. In many parts, Ra says that which you call healing, you see, is not healing as opposed to as fixing yourself, but rather as fixing your view in life. So yes, this is something to be explored, totally individual. There's not much to say here, but just to tell you, this is another side effect, let's say, of remembering who you are and abiding there. So let's cover the last question and we will be done with session 102. Don says in question 22, the last one, I'll just ask if there's anything we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact. Ra says, all is well. Find love and thanksgiving together, and each shall support each. The alignments are conscientious. We are known to you as Ra. We leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth then, merry and glad in his power and peace. Adonai. Once again, you see, find love and thanksgiving together, and each shall support each. That is the greatest healing. In this environment, you can reside in this presence of love and of the one infinite creator, the love and the light of the one infinite creator. So yeah, I just wanted to mention this because, again, with the last sessions, I feel kind of nostalgic and want to read everything else that we have left. So the alignments are conscientious, and I thought it was interesting that they said, we are known to you as Ra, as opposed to saying, I am Ra, because that's what they usually said, right? I am Ra, we leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Here they said, we are known to you as Ra. So, conclusions. Very short episode. We have, 4 more to go? 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 more episodes. Not episodes, sessions, but definitely session 103 will be a 2-part episode, since this is the last one that we have for material that is still within the model and the philosophy of the Law of One. Archetypical mind, last time. I don't have much to say about the session itself, since it was all about personal material and Carla's conditions. Just invite you once again to the practical aspect of this. You see, over time, I felt that in my own path, I have discarded so many things that were important to me, and everything seems to focus now in this one recognition, I'm going to say, because recognition seems to be what we do first. So the remembering, recognition of what we find in this, it's amazing. It's just incredible that what we are is this awareness. I was speaking of Kentucky, I was telling Gary that I find it amazing that we're so distracted with the mind that we look at this. The greatest finding is to know that you are the awareness of experience. And it is so common for us to go back to experience and relate to experience than to remain in this awareness. And I find it fascinating that when asking people and bringing them to this process, they say, no, when I think of I think always of an image. I think always of this. I think always of myself in this way. And it is so difficult at first to pull them out of the hypnosis that we have gotten into for decades, of course. But it is possible, and it is through that effort or that direction of will, as Ra would say, that we get more and more permeated by this knowledge. And I understand that this is it seems like empty. Like, what am I going to get out of that? How is that going to help me in all my problems? I don't see a viable way. I don't see a structured way into which this will help me, with my anxiety or with my depression or with my sense of insecurity and so on. All these problems that we seem to have. And it is my desire to show you how, because it is possible. It's just that you have to see it. Whereas there are explanations for other methods which use the mind to kind of change the mind. You see, these methods, you can explain them to a degree and people can follow, these guidelines. Well, there is no guideline to follow here, but just to allow this peace, right? Because what you find is peace in awareness. Allow peace to inform your reality, and it will change everything. How could you say no to peace at any moment? And with peace, I don't mean, being always calm and relaxed, but rather, even in the decisions in which you have to act, let's say with strength, peace will inform you as well. That peace will show you the most appropriate way to react, as opposed to being stressed. Why would you want to be stressed? It's just a clear mind that allows you to see properly. So that's all I can invite you to do. I mean, the rest that we do here and in all our social media and studies and so on, it's just swallowing concepts and allowing the heart to vibrate or sing with these concepts and these connections that we make, and all that is great. That's amazing. That's part of disciplining somehow the mind in this direction, as opposed to going through something else. But the practice doesn't come from the mind. The practice comes from the heart, and that is what I invite you to do. I have nothing else to say, but to say thank you to all of you who listen to this and who are interested. Not many are, but yeah, there's beauty here. And yeah, session 103 is going to be the last session in which we talk about this philosophy and model. Have a good day or good night, whatever you are. Stay well, and I'll see you in first part of session 103.